Strong winds throwing trees into homes, cars, and power lines. The storm killed 4 in Virginia and took out power to 160,000 people in 4 states. It was a beautiful, windy morning after in Virginia, but a state of emergency declared by the governor remained in effect after twisters shredded and tossed homes and left thousands without power. In the small town of Waverly, southeast of Richmond, complete and utter devastation. 3 dead, including a child.
Only thing we heard is a 2-year-old baby was found in the woods.
That baby and 2 men, all related, were pronounced dead.
This is devastating.
Several buildings wiped out.
What's there now is nothing there now but boards that's been destroyed.
Across several states, more than 30 tornadoes in the last day alone. First tearing across Louisiana and destroying this RV park.
God, let us be okay. Let us get through this.
Torrential rains flooded the mid-Atlantic to the northeast. Downpours led to flash floods, washing away cars and creating a mess for the D.C. area.
I thinking like, okay, I will drop, I will be die. I just call God help me. I pray.
In New York, heavy winds overturned this truck on the George Washington Bridge. And on the backside of this massive storm, blizzard conditions across the Midwest.
At a cliffside apartment building in Pacifica, California, police posted notices telling people they have to go. Danger had become too great as the cliff started falling dramatically into the ocean.
We gotta do what we gotta do, gotta get out.
Michelle Montoya moved in just 2 months ago to an apartment with an unparalleled ocean view. Where are you gonna go?
I have no clue.
The cliffs here in Pacifica can rise more than 100 feet. When the base is pounded by high surf, the bluff is undermined. That's why these big boulders have been brought in to try to slow that erosion. But when powerful winter storms hit, the cliffs take a beating, and that's left these buildings teetering on the edge. Pacifica has seen this before. In 1998, the last big El Nino year, constant winter storms washed away the cliffs, leaving several houses hanging on edge. One collapsed onto the beach below. Others had to be torn down. It's a fate more Pacifica citizens could face. 5,000 people here live in the city's threatened coastal zone. Half Pacifica's businesses are located there too.
It's deja vu for many communities along the New Jersey shore. After floodwaters and winds rivaling Superstorm Sandy pounded the coast over the weekend. In Wildwood, a storm surge topping 3 feet carried boats into streets, while 50-mile-per-hour winds ripped away signs.
We're at a low tide, and you can still see the water that's trapped in these areas.
Wildwood Mayor Ernie Troiano said about 100 people were forced to evacuate.
The fact that the water came up as high as it did caught a lot of people off guard. We didn't expect this kind of tides.
Those tides crested above 9 feet in some areas, flooding roads across the South Jersey shore, stranding vehicles and drivers.
We've seen a lot of docks on the road and a lot of flooding in the stores.
Cell phone video captured ice flows covering streets in several towns. At one point, 94,000 power outages were reported across the state.
To weather now, an apparent tornado has tore through southern Florida. Extremely strong winds and thunderstorms flipped cars, ripped roofs off several buildings, and toppled trees north of Fort Lauderdale today.
And Florida could see even more heavy rain and strong winds throughout the day.
Severe winds tossed several cars through this parking lot. Right now, crews are working to get everything cleaned up here. There were at least half a dozen cars that had to be towed away. I do want to get you to some video of the damage. One car went airborne and ended up actually stacked on top of another car. There was also a pickup truck that was turned onto its side right across the street from the campus on Coconut Creek Parkway. High winds also sent a small commuter bus flying. That driver did suffer minor injuries, but he is expected to be okay. Witnesses in the area say that it was actually just drizzling out here when all of a sudden everything went dark outside. Lights indoors started flickering and they could just hear that wind howling and then all of these cars crashing together. We're being told that fortunately no students were injured by this severe weather, but again, we have several cars damaged, trees down, several power lines affected as well, and we also have some structural damage with roofs ripped off of some buildings out here. Again, though, no injuries to report, but because of the damage out here, Broward College North is being shut down until at least 5 o'clock today because of the severe weather warnings that are still in effect.
A new case of Zika virus was reported in Minnesota today. That makes 10 cases in 5 states. The mosquito-borne infection is a threat to fetuses developing in the womb. Those U.S. cases are in people who traveled from south of the border, but Dr. John LaPook is looking into the likelihood of an outbreak here at home.
Brazil is fighting the spread of Zika virus by trying to control its mosquito population. So far, the Zika virus has not been found in any mosquitoes in the U.S., but the types of mosquitoes that could potentially carry the virus are found in this country. In fact, in warmer months, those mosquitoes can be found in regions where 60% of Americans live. That's about 200 million people. The Zika virus has been linked to a birth defect called microcephaly, where babies are born with small heads. NYU Langone's Dr. Tara Shirazian says doctors here are bracing for the likely arrival of the virus. In America, about 4 million women get pregnant each year.
Out of 5 women, only 1 exhibits symptoms, so the other 4 don't have symptoms and may still have been exposed and may still develop microencephaly in their fetuses. And the transmission from the mom to the fetus, we think, is relatively high.
Nurse practitioner Sophia Okoye is 22 weeks pregnant and has decided not to vacation in the Caribbean this year.
Even some of the countries we were considering that weren't on the travel ban list, I felt like by the time of our trip in March, it seemed like the list was rapidly growing.
Today, both United and American Airlines issued new policies allowing pregnant women to postpone travel or receive full refunds for flights to Zika-affected countries.
The common way Zika spreads is through mosquito bites, but more research is needed about the risk of transmission through sexual contact and blood transfusion. And Scott, a vaccine could be 3 to 5 years away.
It does seem to me and to others, another expert friend of mine, that what we were dealing with here is some type of biowarfare agent that has been genetically modified, GMO. So for that reason, you really can't believe anything the WHO, the Pan American Health Organization, the CDC is telling you. What is critical here is that I believe it was the summer of 2004, there was a scholarly paper published saying that these genetically modified mosquitoes could be dangerous if they were released. And despite this knowledge, they were released both in Brazil and also in Colombia, deliberately and maliciously. Now, why Brazil and Colombia? Brazil, you hit the Atlantic coast of Latin America, and Colombia, you hit the Pacific coast of Latin America, and you set off a pandemic.
4 female suicide bombers have detonated bombs inside a busy market in the northeastern town of Chibok, killing and wounding dozens of civilians. And no group has claimed responsibility for the attacks, but many have attributed the blasts to the terror group Boko Haram. What we do know is that 3 of the bombers managed to evade a police checkpoint and infiltrate the market, subsequently triggering the blasts. A 4th was detained before that blast went off. Now, Chibok was thrust into the spotlight after the abduction of over 300 girls by Boko Haram in the spring of 2014. Nigeria's military says security forces have the ability to engage the militants and rescue the girls. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari is doubling down on his promise to make ending the insurgency a priority. So far, the military has been able to score victories against the terror group and reclaim territory, but sporadic suicide bombings and hit-and-run attacks continue.
Japan's Kyodo News, quote, unnamed Japanese official, is saying that signs of possible preparations indicate that the DPRK may be ready to launch a missile within a week. The conclusion is reportedly based on analysis of satellite imagery from the Chiang missile test site on the west coast. The Japanese and South Korean governments have both declined to comment on whether the report is true.
The North is likely to do it abruptly if they launch important provocative acts in the future.
We decline to comment considering the nature of the subject, as the government will continue to work closely with countries such as South Korea and the US, while gathering information and being on alert to uphold UN decisions and the joint statement of the six-party talks.
The United States has once again challenged Beijing's territorial claims in the South China Sea. A U.S. Navy destroyer has sailed within 12 nautical miles of an island claimed by China. Pentagon says the move is aimed at challenging efforts to restrict the freedom of navigation. The U.S. Defense Department confirmed that no Chinese military vessels are in the vicinity of the destroyer near Trident Island in the Paracel Islands. China and its neighbors have been locked in territorial disputes in the South China Sea. China has repeatedly told the U.S. to stay out of the row. Washington is trying to counter Beijing's growing assertiveness in the region.
Well, we're here in the egg breeding lab of Oxitec, a company in the United Kingdom which is using mosquitoes to fight mosquitoes. This is the Aedes aegypti. There are about 12,000 of them in these 4 cages. This is the specific species of mosquito which spreads Zika and also dengue fever. These mosquitoes are not the same as what you would find in the wild. They're all genetically modified. They can't survive very long outside of this lab setting. So what scientists have been doing is they take the male of this genetically modified mosquito, they release them into a problematic wild population where there's some sort of an outbreak, and they breed with the females.
There's actually 3 million mosquito eggs in this pot, believe it or not. And we can ship these very easily around the world to different areas where we're treating the mosquito and trying to remove the mosquito with our technology.
The offspring don't survive. They never make it into adulthood. And they've been able, in studies, to wipe out 90% or more of the specific problematic population of mosquito. Just to give you an idea, the best mosquito eradication programs with chemicals can only get rid of, best case, 30 to 50% of a population. So it's been hugely successful. It's already being used.